Good evening. Today's daf is daf Yud Gimel. We are going to begin by Gufa. It's 4 lines from the top on daf Yud Gimel and Aleph Gufa. Now the Gemara is going to focus now. Gufa is going to focus on the text we said before concerning. We said that a person who steals another person's property and now takes a false oath denying that he stole the other person's property. So that the halacha is that he's obligated to bring a korban asham, and the pasuk says that umala mal ba'ashem. And the pasuk says that he commits a trespass against Hashem, and then the pasuk says v'chichesh ba'misa, and he denied it. Now, this pasuk is not speaking about a korban; it's speaking about when somebody steals and the guy denies it. So the halacha is, Torah says umala mal ba'ashem, he commits a trespass against Hashem, and v'chichesh ba'misa, and he deals falsely with his neighbor. So this we spoke about yesterday. What will be something you call a mola mal ba'ashem, but he has to pay. He has an obligation to bring a korban asham. So the Gemara says, "L'Rabbi's kachim kalam shem mayne." This pasuk comes to include a case where a person denies having a possession of what, of kachim kalim, which as we said yesterday are the property of their owners, and they are included in the pasuk of v'chichesh ba'misei. So how can it be a mola mal ba'ashem at the same time v'chichesh ba'misei is kachim kalim, which is mamayne. Tivri Rabbi Saglili. Ben Rabbi says the Rabbi says Hashlamim. This comes to include the. He says that and like Rashi says, he's not arguing. He's just adding. The Rabbi says Hashlamim. This comes to include the korban shlamim. Abba Yesim ben Destomi le'Omer ben Azi ela b'bched bovad. Now, as I said, this only with regards to the korban firstborn offering. Amar Mar, we learned in a brayso, Ben Azi Eimer, Ben Azi says that Amar Mar, Ben Azi Eimer, the Rabbi says Shlamim. Says it's coming to include the korban shlamim. So the Gemara asks, the Ben Azi's interpretation, it's limiting. You're saying that it's the Rabbi says Shlamim. So for the Gemara Lemutimai, what's it coming to exclude? So he says like this: if you're coming to exclude a firstborn korban, because he holds that a firstborn is not the property of a kayin, so the you could say the kedusha of a becher offering is a lesser kedusha than that of a shlamim. He says like this: Hashnu ma shlamim, if the korban shlamim shetu'unim smicha nechasim tnufa chazei v'sheik, which by the case of the peace offering, which has a higher degree of kedusha, such that they require placing hands on the head of the korban and are accompanied by wine and the waving of the chazei v'shek of the breast and the right leg by the kohen and the owner together. Amris, rather, what do you say over there? Mum and bailim hu. You say that even though it has a higher degree of kedusha, you're still saying that shlamim is a mum bailim. So b'ched miboy, is it necessary to say that our firstborn offering, of which these halachas do not apply, that the kohen has ownership of it? Certainly not, because it has a lesser degree. So of course it's mamin bailim. Elam Rabbi Yechanan says the muti meiser. When Azay mentions shlamim in order to exclude an animal of meiser. In other words, we know every 10th animal of a person's flock that is designated as a korban for those animals, and you bring it as a korban, has a lesser degree of kedusha. It has a lesser degree of kedusha. So animal meisers are excluded because Menazi holds that an animal of a meiser is not the property of the owner of the actual flock. Tanya, we learned in a brayso, with regards to the firstborn offering, it says lo tifta, you shall not redeem, which is mashma that the owner can never fully redeem the korban, taking away the kedusha. Now, v'nimkar tam, and the becher offering can be sold when it's unblemished. V'nimkar tam chai, it can be sold when it's unblemished and alive. Ubalmum, or when it's blemished, chai v'shochet, and alive or blemished and it's slaughtered. V'meiser nemar lo yigol. With regards to animal of a meiser, pasuk says it shall not be redeemed, which is mashma that one who designated it can never fully redeem an animal, thereby removing its kedusha. And the animal cannot be sold nor when it's alive nor when it's shechted. The fact that the sale of an animal offering is invalid, it's mashma that it is not the property of the one who designated it. Ravina, Masnala, Sefer Ravina taught this with regards to the last case of the Brisa. Abba Yeshim in this story, Imri says, "Le'omer ben Azai ela b'chid b'vad." He says, Ben Azai said this only in regards to the first burnt offering. So the Gemara asks, "L'mutimai." Abba Yeshim in this story interpretation of the phrase, which is l'ched limiting reference to the bechir, to excluding what? Ilem l'muti shlamim. If you're coming to exclude the shlamim because he holds that they're not the property of the one who was makdash it, so you could say that hashnu ma bechir by a bechir, which shekadish merechem, which is holy from the second it emerges. And it's nevertheless considered his property. Shlamim mibai, the shlamim need it. So Rabbi Yechon says l'mutei meiser. It's coming. Abba Yosef in this study is coming to exclude the animal of meiser. Animal meiser are excluded because Abba Yosef in this study holds that animal offering is not the property of the owner of the flock. Okay, the time you learned in a brisa, with regards to a becher, says you shall not redeem, which is mashmara that the owner can never fully redeem the korban. We have this already chai v'shochet. Ma'aser never let you go. It's not loy tam v'loy bamum. Now the fact that the sale of an animal korban, animal ma'aser offering is invalid, that demonstrates that it's not the property of the one who designated it. Now, so the Gemara asks, Bava Kamah, doesn't Abba Yossi? But as he said that only with regard to the first one offering. So the Gemara says, Kasha taka shayla. Now, the Gemara now cites an alternative explanation of the Mishnah. What does the Mishnah mean when it says that one is chayav for the damage caused to property of which we want to use it for mundane purpose? One would not be chayav for the mi'ilah. Now, what is it? It is the hedyot. And let the Mishnah teach explicitly that one is chayav only for damage caused by property of a hedyot. Which is kasha, taka kasha. Rabbi says shlamim sheziku. Now, with regards to the case of an animal that was it's a korban shlamim, it was consecrated as a korban shlamim. What happened? It caused damage. So the halacha is goyvim ibsaran. The injured party collects damage from the meat. In other words, from the portion of the offering that would have been eaten by its owners. Why? Because this is in accordance with the general halacha that the payment for damage caused by a tam is collected exclusively from the proceeds of the sale of the body of the ox and not from any other property of the owner. So this shlamim that damaged, how do you collect from it is goyim ibsaran. But it does not collect the damage from the sacrificial portion. So the Gemara says, Pshita, isn't this obvious that one collects exclusively from the meat portion and salki? Isn't it obvious that one collects exclusively from the meat portion and not from the sacrificial portion, as those are to be offered to Hashem? So my answer is, it's not necessary for Abba to teach this. Now, it's necessary for Abba to teach that there is no collection from the owner of meat's portion corresponding to the emurim. Payment for damage caused by a tam animal is half of the amount of the damage and can be no more than the value of the animal itself. So Abba is teaching that when assessing the damage to determine the amount to be paid, one deems the owner responsible only according to his share of the animal, which means the meat portion in relation to the animal as a whole. So the Gemara says, Aliba the man, and according to whose opinions does Abba state this? If it's according to how Rabbanan Pshita, it's obvious. Because didn't the Chacham say whenever, for whatever reason, the full cost of the damage cannot be recovered from this party, it's not recovered from the party, from that party, even though the injured party suffered the loss of the full value of his animal and recovered only half of its value from the owner of the ox. He may not demand the remaining sum of the owner in its pit. So too, in this case, when the injured party cannot collect damages from the portion, he cannot recover the loss from the meat portions of the one who brought the offering. He said that wherever the full cost of the damage cannot be recovered from this one, it cannot be recovered from that one. Since the owner of the ox pays only a quarter of the damage, the remaining sum can be recovered from the owner of the pit. So too, in this case, since the injured party cannot collect payment from the korban portion, he should be able to recover that loss from the meat portions of the one who brought the offering, in contrast to the ruling of Rabbi Abba. So Gemara explains, Ibay Seimer Rav Nasan, Ibay Seimer Rabbanan, you could say either or. Ibay Seimer Rabbanan, Hani Mili B'Trei Gufi. You could say this according to the Chachamim, and you would say that that applies only when the damage is caused by two bodies, such as an ox and a bed. But where the damage is caused by one body, as in the case of the damaged animal by an animal, like we say, the ones that belongs to the base of Migdash is one. So mikol heichad b'inun mishtalmi. From anywhere that I want to, I will recover my losses, and accordingly, the injured party could collect the full cost of the damage from the meat portions of the one who brought the carbon. Therefore, it's necessary for Abba to teach that this is not halacha. Or I could say it's Rav Nasan, Hasam hu d'amrlei bal shei lebal habed, because it's only there that the owner of the damaged ox can say to the owner of the pit, "Ano teiri bibidach ashkeche." Since I found my ox in your pit, ultimately you bear the responsibility of any damage. And therefore, and therefore, whatever I cannot recover from the other one, the owner of the ox, I'll recover from you. Aval hacha. Very good. Okay, Daf Yud Gimel, Amud Beis. Aval hacha. But here, in the case of the damage caused by an animal, which is makdish as a shlamim, can one say, is the injured party actually able to say only the meat of the animal caused damage, but not the carbon portion did not cause damage? Since the entire animal caused the damage, he does not collect the full cost of the damage from the meat portion of the one who brought the carbon. Okay, Rava says, in the case of a Thanksgiving carbon that caused damage, and the injured party collects damages from its meat. In other words, from the portion of the carbon that would have been eaten by the one who brought the carbon. But he does not collect from its bread, from the offering of the 40 loaves of bread that accompanies the carbon of the animal. So Mar says, Lechem Shita, it's obvious that he does not collect from the bread. The bread is not part of the animal that caused damage. So my answer is Seifa Israchale. It's necessary for the Rava to state this because of the latter clause of the ruling. Nizak Eichel Basar, the injured party eats the meat portion of the offering according to the value of the damage owed to him. Miskaper maybe lechem, but the one achieving atonement, the one bringing the carbon, brings the bread. This is obvious. Why should anyone else bring the bread? So the Gemara answers, you would think, since the bread is necessary qualifying factor for the Thanksgiving offering, as without it one does not fulfill a person's obligation. So let the owner of the offering say to the one eating it, basar. Why should you eat the meat? And you bring the bread. If you wish to eat, you should bring the bread. Therefore, it teaches us that the offering of the lechem is the obligation of the owners of the offering. Now, the Mishnah said that one is chayiv only for damage caused to nechashim shehein shel bnei bris, property that belongs to members of the covenant. What does it come to exclude? If it comes to exclude the property of a goy, we have this already later on. The Mishnah says, if a Yiddish ox quarter goy ox, it's a potter. So the Gemara answers, Tana Hadar Mefarish. The Tana teaches this as a principle in the Mishnah and then explains in the greater detail the Mishnah. Now the Mishnah continues, one is chayiv only for assigned property. So the Gemara says, what does it come to exclude? This clause serves to exclude the case which the animal is injured but is unclear which two oxen owned by the different person caused the damage. This one says that your ox died. This one says your ox died, damaged. Since it cannot be proven which ox actually damaged, neither owner is chayiv. The intention of the Mishnah is that one is liable only when the ox is assigned to it. It's known to be the property of a specific individual. We already learned this later on. If two oxen were seen pursuing a single ox, and then the single ox is found to be injured, so the owner of this ox says it was your ox that damaged. And the other one says it was your share. And they're both pater. Why? Because it's uncertain which one is taka guilty. So my answer is Tani Vada Mefarish, that we're explaining it over here in greater detail. Remember, Sisan Tana was taught in a Bryce. An explanation of the Mishnah says Prat l'nichse hefsker. serves to exclude ownerless property. What are the circumstances in which the Mishnah teaches that one is exempt? If we say it's referring to a case where the ox belonging to us, to a yid, an ownerless ox, it's obvious that the owner bears no liability. Because who is claiming damages from him? Rather, an ownerless ox quartered in an ox belonging to us, and it teaches us the injured party does not have the right to damage. So the Gemara asks, what's the point of this halacha? If the injured party wishes to recover his losses, lazy v'lazy, let him go and take the ox himself. So it's hefker. So the Gemara says, we're talking about a case where another person preceded him and acquired it. The injured party has no claim to it. Ravina says, we're talking about a case where he gored and then he became hektish. Or he gored and then he became hefker. If he gored and then he became hektish, or like it says, in other words, the pasuk says, and he had been forewarned with his owner, which means that unless the ox's status of the owner's property at the same time of death of the victim at the same time of the owner is standing trial at the same time, in other words, the ox is owned by a responsible party for both events. But do we not also require that the ox status be the same at the time of the verdict? It says, the ox shall be stoned, but who the custom is written with regard to the time of the verdict. Or rather say, rather say that the owner of the ox is pater, unless the ox status as the owner's property at the same time of the death of the victim, at the same time of the owner is standing trial, that the verdict is the same. In other words, the ox is owned by a responsible party of all three events. Okay. The Mishnah teaches that one is chayav for damage caused by any place except for a domain designated exclusively for the use of the one who is responsible for the damage. The Amar Lei, the Gemara says, because the one chayav for the damage can say to the injured party, what did your ox want in my domain? One does not have to guard his ox from causing damage within his own property, since another person's animal has no right to be there. The Mishnah continues, and one is chayav for damage caused in a domain designated for the joint use of the injured party and the one liable for the damage. Now, the Gemara cites a machlekes concerning the case that results in two different ways of interpreting the Mishnah. So he says like this. He says in the case of chatzar shutfin, which means chatzar that a courtyard designated for the joint use of two partners. So either one of them is chayav for damage caused by the ox of one partner to the property of another partner, while in it, for the category of shein and regel. This is what it means. This is what it means. That except for a domain designated exclusive for the use of one responsible for the damage, but in the domain designated for the joint use of the injured party and the one responsible for the damage, when he causes damage, the one who is responsible for the damage is obligated to pay the damage. A statement in the Mishnah concerning a domain designated for joint use is the beginning of the following case and introduces a case in which one is chayav for damage. Now, Rabbi Elazar says, Patal Hashem l'regel, in a beis din designated for joint use, in a courtyard designated for joint use, one is pater for one's ox causing damage to the property of his partner. In the case of shein v'al-regel, is coming to include Karen. The Gemara says, Shmuel, this works according very well to Shmuel, who holds that Karen is not an Av. Then the one liable for the damage is obligated to pay damage. What's it coming to include? When an animal or item one is responsible to safeguard causes damage, the one liable for the damage caused by insufficiently safeguarding it is lahavi all these cases which the animal and ox caused damage while it's in their possession. Tom, in the case of Tom, and if it's a but if the ox was safely enclosed and the wall broke open at night, or a listim broke into and open and the ox went out and caused damage, he is pater.